So here's the truth. You've got to know that incontinence is not just a mum's problem or just what happens with age. It's a whole body issue, and it deserves really a whole body solution. And this is what we do with whole body pelvic health. We bring balance back to the whole body so that your pelvic floor can function and we can prevent and resolve incontinence. Often with the women that I work with, and even those of you that have done some of my free classes online, you fed back and said, well, once I corrected my breathing, the incontinence just went away. And it can be that simple. Yet we're being told that, it's something to accept, or that we have to strengthen our pelvic floor. And the truth is that really just is not true, is not the answer.
To Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, the podcast where honest conversation meets real evidence-based solutions for your pelvic health. I'm Claire Sparrow, second-generation Pilates teacher, educator, and best-selling author. I'm here to help you understand your body better, move with confidence, and finally get answers that make sense. Each week, we'll bust myths, share insights from movement science and pelvic health research, and give you practical steps you can actually use in your everyday life. Because pelvic health isn't just about exercises, it's about reconnecting with yourself, one breath, one choice, and one movement at a time. Let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be here for another episode of Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. In this episode, I want to bust a little bit of this myth that only women who've had babies will experience incontinence, because what a load of nonsense that is. Honestly, it's so unfair on all of the women who are out there, you're probably listening, who are being made to feel like there's something wrong with them, they're doing something wrong, that they must have done something wrong because they're experiencing incontinence and haven't had children. And that it's just ludicrous, because it is not the primary cause of incontinence. There's many other factors that influence your continence. And I want to share in this episode what those things are, but also kind of begin with the baseline of how your pelvic floor functions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So all of women can be subject to experiencing different types of incontinence. So just know that you're not broken and you're not alone. All right. So pelvic floor function, so your ability to be continent, because that's what we're talking about specifically. And your pelvic floor function is way more than just being continent. That's what we're going to talk about today. So pelvic floor function and continence really depends on the balance in your pelvis, your hips, and in fact your whole body. It relies on your ability to breathe normally, that you don't have any restriction, you're not pulling your tummy in. It relies on your pelvis moving freely and flexibly in all of your everyday activities. It really is beyond the pelvic floor. It's about the balance of the structures that influence your pelvic floor. And the structures that influence it are your legs, your hips, so your legs come into the pelvis where the hip sockets are. Your spine, because your spine comes down into the pelvis, because your sacrum and your tailbone are part of the pelvis, and also they're the bottom of your spine. So when you start to think about it, it all just seems a bit bonkers to target just the pelvic floor muscles that are the interwoven muscles. If you go back a couple of episodes, I talk all about the pelvic floor muscles, those interwoven muscles that are a diaphragm on the inside of your pelvis. Why would we just think about those. Because if the bones of your pelvis, if the legs are, if you've had, I don't know, you've sprained your ankle, for example, so that whole side is compensating the whole leg up into your hip and pelvis. So then your pelvic floor is in an environment that's no longer balanced because that sprained ankle side's doing some all kind of funky thing and the other side's compensating for it. We no longer have that balanced equilibrium, the adaptability. And one of the things that I think we have an assumption around is that we're symmetrical and that stability means symmetry and not moving, strong. And actually, the opposite is true. It's through our ability to move well that we distribute the world, the loads, the forces, the lifting the kettle, the carrying the child, that we're able to distribute that all throughout our body without injury and without creating a dysfunction or an imbalance. It's that makes us strong, our ability to move. A great example is the spine and the pelvis. The spine's got all those teeny tiny little bones in it, all the vertebrae, all the discs, and then the pelvis. It is not just one solid bowl or basin of bone. It is made up of different components with multiple joints, which means it's designed to move. Our spine, our pelvis, there's so much movement there, yet we have this, I think, we're not choosing it. It is just the information coming in from the outside world. We feel like we need to just be stiff, stable, strong, and our perception of that is symmetrical, is lack of movement. And in actual fact, by embodying and thinking in that way, we create tension and restriction and imbalance where we need there to be movement. So balance is the ability to be adaptable to the environment, to move, to shape shift all the time. It's uniquely us. We're amazing. So what does that all have to do with incontinence? Well, if we are not able to shapeshift and we're not in a balanced state, we're therefore imbalanced. So that is where we have a build-up of tension. So an example of that would be if you sit with your legs crossed. I've obviously sat and crossed my legs if you're watching on YouTube, because if you sit always with your legs crossed, lady crossed, or you sit on the floor and you always cross your legs the same way, you are creating an imbalance through your pelvis, because one hip's going to be higher than the other, one hip's going to be forwards of the other, and those bones are the bones that the pelvic floor muscles are attached to. They weave into and hug onto those bones. So if the bones are in a funky alignment, the muscles are not able to function as well. Maybe you sit for work all day, so you're sat on your bottom, you're basically sat on your pelvic floor. This means that those muscles are just getting stuck down on each other. They're not getting the chance to move. And in the movement, that's where they are getting more fluid, more hydrated. They've got more sensory awareness. So they are able to be stronger when they're needed, because they've got motion in them, as well as the motion in the joints of that area as well. So when we are thinking about being balanced in our pelvis, this really is for all women, not just women who've had babies. I've spoken before, and I will continue to speak about women that have had babies, because many women, 90% or more, that have had a vaginal delivery will have had some kind of birth injury that will cause some scar tissue. Scar tissue is like the sitting down for a long period of time, is the dehydrated, it's stuck, it's immobile, it's lacking sensation. And therefore, that creates a pull and an imbalance through your pelvis. But that's only one reason for that demographic of women. I promise you, it is not just women that have had babies. Another example would be if you've had a hip replacement, if you've had abdominal surgery, even keyhole surgery for a little investigation, if you've had a fracture somewhere, so maybe you fractured your femur or your ankle or anything like that, is going to influence the balance and the ability of your pelvic floor to be functional. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what incontinence is. And I'm going to talk about the two main types of urinary incontinence. So we've got stress incontinence, and this is leakage. Either way, it's leakage, but it's happening because your body's under pressure. It's a situation like you're running or you're jumping or you sneeze or you're laughing hysterically. That's creating stress. And when we have the incontinence, it's because the pelvic floor muscles can't support us in that moment of stress. Sometimes it is as simple as your glutes, your deep hip muscles are tight and short and they are pulling on your pelvic floor like tie backs holding curtains open, and those curtains are desperately trying to shut for that cough or sneeze. But they can't because they're being pulled apart by over strong, tight muscles in the hips. And that would be an imbalance. So if you do lots of activity where you're working on strengthening your glutes, you might inadvertently be causing incontinence because you're not also working on balancing out in the inner thighs and the pelvic floor. You're just focused in that one area. And then we have urge incontinence. And this is when, you suddenly have to go, like, out of nowhere. You're desperate, urgent, gotta go. And often it's like the most irritating and inconvenient times. Like when you're stood at the front door rooting around your handbag for your keys. That's called latch key. So this is when there's a little bitty breakdown between what your brain is feeling, what you're sensing, and what's actually happening. And I've talked about this before, the idea that actually you need to visualize being on the doorstep before you're on the doorstep. Visualize yourself calmly finding your keys, calmly getting in the front door, taking your coat off, putting your bag and keys away before you go to the toilet. I've also talked about the need to relax your lower abdomen, the need to breathe deeply here, letting go of your belly button, letting your bladder have some more space to take up, because oftentimes we automatically clench and we're compressing, we're tightening up the space that is there for your bladder. And if we just make more space, it will help it so much to feel, not just to feel like there's more space, but to literally create more space. So here's the truth. You've got to know that incontinence is not just a mum's problem or just what happens with age. It's a whole body issue, and it deserves really a whole body solution. And this is what we do with whole body pelvic health. We bring balance back to the whole body so that your pelvic floor can function and we can prevent and resolve incontinence. Often with the women that I work with, and even those of you that have done some of my free classes online, you fed back and said, well, once I corrected my breathing, the incontinence just went away. And it can be that simple. Yet we're being told that, it's something to accept or that we have to strengthen our pelvic floor. And the truth is that really just is not true, is not the answer. So I'd love you to have this conversation with friends, tell them. Talk about incontinence in a different light rather than the joking, I had to avoid the jump park because I couldn't join in, or I had to stop the running group that I joined because of the incontinence. Why don't we actually say, has anybody had any success with their pelvic floor? Did you know that your pelvic floor is part of your whole body and doesn't just need to be strength? So maybe we can have these conversations with people. So let's finish up just with those key takeaways for today. Incontinence is not just a post-childbirth issue. Any woman at any age stage of life can experience it. And the two main types, you've got your stress incontinence and you've got your urge incontinence. Stress is sneezing and coughing. Urge is the sudden desperate need to go. Your pelvic floor is part of a team. It works with your hips, your glutes, your spine and your breath. An imbalance in any of these can impact your continence. Movement and communication matter. Stiffness or injury can reduce how well your brain and your pelvic floor coordinate with one another. And the hope, I love to finish with some hope. Incontinence is not inevitable. Your body can change and small whole body steps can make a big difference. So today you can begin by letting it go. Let your belly go. Let your belly button go. And breathe deeply. I really hope that sharing this incontinence story and busting the myth that it's only for women who've had babies, I hope it helps you to recognize what is possible and that it's easier than you think to improve your continence. Please do share your stories with me and ask any questions that you might have. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to cover in another episode, you can DM me, send me a message, let me know what you would like me to talk about, and I will happily answer those questions. And for now, I will look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Hope for Your Pelvic Floor.
Thanks for tuning in to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with someone who needs it. It really does help more women find the support they deserve. And for deeper support, head to wholebodypelvichealth.co.uk to explore the Whole Body Pelvic Health membership and many free resources. You can ask more from your pelvic floor, and I'll be here, your voice of hope, every step of the way.